Welcome back, folks. CIOs and Bowties, Greg Silverman and Mr. David Crook on the line. Been a while since we've seen each other, David. It's an unfortunate situation, but always good to reconnect on the macro and the micro with you. We're speaking today about specifically JIO platforms, but also the ascension of India as a result of China's, let's say, geopolitical behavior. So let's just review some of the Chinese behavior that we've come to see, but much more of an autocratic approach, let's say, if you will. We know about the Wuhan catastrophe, if I can call it that, about how they kind of covered that up for a while, and without revealing to the world, we know about I think his name was Dr. Ji Wenliang, was the doctor who was trying to inform the world through WhatsApp about corona, the Wuhan virus, and he was kind of subjugated there. China's really got involved in Hong Kong. Hong Kong was always considered to be the jewel in the crown of I want to say the Chinese empire, the Chinese system. It was the financial capital, so they seem to be having no problems about trying to bring that into the fold. Taiwan as well. So that's has not gone unnoticed certainly by Trump and his administration. And he's been really pulling punches as far as Huawei is concerned. I think there was even an arrest in Canada of one of their officials at Huawei. So CFO. not allowing their 5G AI robotics type technology here, principally because China's been accused of spying through many channels, but TikTok, the app, as one of them. So why don't you take that as a thread and see if you can develop that?
Oh, I can, Greg, because I'm going to start with Hong Kong and make a broad statement saying that perhaps Hong Kong is not the only thing, and then that's China's intention. The Chinese consider Taiwan to be a province of China.
Yes.
And with an anti-China president now, which wasn't the case up until a few years ago, tensions are immense over there. Just this week in Hong Kong, with the new securities laws that were passed, and essentially it is the Western view that the Chinese are not holding to their agreement with the British when they handed over Hong Kong. For 50 years, China were to give them some level of independence. But there have been arrests, and just in the last few days, a number of arrests in China. That is after they delayed the local elections from this year to next. So a lot of interference from mainland China into Hong Kong right now, and that's a worry. Hong Kong is an avenue for the Western world to participate in the Chinese growth, and it will be interesting to see how people really take to this and what they do in the near future. And then the other big one is how China deal with Taiwan in the months and years to come. It's worrying. It's a concern. With that being said, we then have the Chinese-India conflict. And yes, on their common border, there was an agreement in place which they adhered to, that there were no guns within 2 miles of a particular line. But 24 Indians were still killed with batons, crude instruments. I have no doubt some Chinese soldiers were killed as well. We don't know that, though, because the Chinese didn't make any statements with regard to it.
Right.
But clearly there are tensions between China and India right now. And that might just, in terms of this geopolitical move that I'm talking about, choosing your allies and becoming more regional, this might just force Modi's hand into becoming more Western-oriented than Asia-oriented in terms of where he's going.
Yeah, there's no question. So, recently came across reports where India has signed military agreements with Australia, so they can now share each other's military bases, essentially probably ports, as it were. So you really have kind of a Australia, India, Japan, US coalition going on, and they've called it. I think that they've termed the phase the quadrilateral union or something like that, and now they call it the Indo-Pacific. Of recognition of India in the Pacific. I will tell you that I have fielded a few calls, very few, but there is certainly a desire. I think Chinese citizens themselves are somewhat concerned with the situation and, what's going to happen with money that they've repatriated outside of China. And, they've bought a lot of real estate here in the United States and how that's
all over the world, Australia.
Exactly. They're really London. And so that's something I think we're somewhat familiar with coming from South Africa, capital control, sanctions, etc. So, but the scale of it is just, way out there relative to anything that we came across in little South Africa. Any points on that? Or I do have one final thing I'd like to bring up.
No, I think we've spoken about what you want to address. I think it's hugely important. It's a divergence from what we've been talking about, folks, but keep on watching, because this really is a change in global economic activity that we've seen in the recent past. Greg?
Yeah. Okay. So just a little theory that I've been thinking of, you and I speak to a lot of professionals in our space, and there is general confusion around, why would the stock market be at or near all-time highs? The Nasdaq's made near all-time highs, given kind of the decimation that's occurred on Main Street. Now, we know there's been severe pain on Main Street. Significantly, PPP has essentially run out. We know that Yelp recently reported, I think the number, don't quote me on this, but I think Yelp has reported that about 80,000 small businesses, or some huge amount, have actually closed their doors. Right, so there's a huge amount of disruption that's gone on Main Street. I know that $600 unemployment, which a lot of people are living off, has now been cut off, and they're having all sorts of problems around new stimulus. And yet, asset markets are making new time highs, and so there's a real disconnect going on. And I think the general consensus is, well, Wall Street will wake up soon enough, and the market will correct as a result, and that may happen. But I've really been thinking hard about it, and I think what's happened. Again, no secret, but just to verbalize it, I think the level of stimulus that has been pushed out has really flowed into asset prices. We get the speculation on Robinhood, we get SPACs, which are blank check companies, are really just taken off. So there's just a lot of speculation going on that are keeping asset prices high. Now, the extremely dangerous situation around this is that if asset prices continue to be high, and we're seeing CPI numbers starting to creep up, I think interest rates may creep up at some point. In effect, what I'm trying to say is this disparity between the haves and the have-nots, I think, is just going to get massively widened to the degree where basic necessities are going to be so expensive. And we may be facing a stagflation / hyperinflation situation. I don't mean to be hyperbole about it, but we may see situations where people cannot afford raised, elevated prices of basic necessities. So I know you've spoken about that. So let me give the mic over to you, so to speak, to respond.
Greg, yes. Just yesterday, ACG Wealth posted a video. I haven't done it on my LinkedIn yet, but it's posted on the ACG Wealth website, in which I talk about the demise of the dollar. And as we well know, use this term, which is widely used, not quite as simple, the world's reserve currency, and it certainly has been. And it's also a fiat currency, since August 71, when President Nixon said no more gold standard. The gold import blocks will no longer support the value of our currency. It will now just be the goodwill of the US government, and all competitive currencies, by and large, are fiat currencies as well. But the demise of the dollar is huge. It's come off its highs if you measure the DXY, the dollar basket, and largely against the euro that is measured. But nonetheless, inflation is picking up. We saw CPI numbers come out here in the US yesterday morning, higher than expected. We've seen the gold price running since October of 18, give or take, which is up sharply, more so than equity markets.
All-time highs for gold, by the way.
Almost. Cryptocurrencies, Greg, if you're looking for something, you're concerned about fiat currencies, which I am. Cryptocurrencies are starting to pick up. The interest in them is starting to pick up. And then there's inflation of commodities. We've seen lumber, we've seen soybeans, we've seen, name it, coffee. Prices are picking up. And in my video yesterday, Greg, I specifically blame the US government, and particularly the central bank. And Powell just the other day made a statement to somebody ignorant or stupid or just trying to pull the wool over the US consumers' eyes, saying that their policies do not in any way create a wider wealth gap. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. Financial asset prices are escalating because of the liquidity that central banks have created since Bernanke's QE. that's ongoing now. The numbers that we have put into this market, both from a fiscal and a monetary perspective over the last few months, are like never even thought of prior to March of this year. We're seeing this wealth gap widen. There are real social issues which are a direct result of this. The central banks need to step up, take responsibility, and realize what they're doing. And you and I come from a third world country, and seeing wealth gaps rise, it's heartbreaking. And by the way, it's unsustainable. That's just the real truth of it.
Yeah, no, then you start getting crime and all nasty stuff results. Okay. Yeah, so you obviously came to the same epiphany that I did, so that's good for validation. So, Dave, this has been a great conversation as always. You know, we've gone literally around the globe in 30 minutes. So thanks very much. It's good to see you. Good to see you doing well.
Good to see you,
and I guess we'll be continuing to pile up in the gold and the Bitcoin, but not investment advice as you know,
no, it's
but
not.
just basically chatter. So thanks very much. Good to see you, and wish you all the well. We should do this again sometime soon.
And we will. Stay safe, everybody, and we're making progress. We will be a freer society in terms of the virus sometime next year. I'm quite positive of that.
I agree. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.